690 KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. It's time for the Front Stretch, brought to you by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Online at joeskarting.com.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, this is another edition of the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, located just off 23rd Avenue, next to the casinos, AMC Theaters, Quaker Steak and Lube. They're on 23rd Avenue. Get down there, get some great fast-paced racing in today, where the only speed restriction is how fast you are. Today's show, we are joined, as always, by Andrew Koziski, intern 4. Andrew, you're going to talk with us a little bit about the changes that are coming to Kansas. We've talked quite a bit about it, but we're going to do a bit of a final word on it and just kind of give the last opinions on it. Then in turn 3, we've got an interview with Roger Hayden, promoter of Eagle Raceway. And in turn 2, as always, the Fast 5. It's 5 stories that are dominating the NASCAR world. And let me tell you what, I had to dig a little deep this week for some NASCAR stories. I think NASCAR has gone underground as far as stories is concerned. Not much going on in the NASCAR world, but we'll talk dirt instead. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Now, Bud finally perked up. I said something about dirt track racing. Bud finally got perked up. You got enough Dr. Pepper in you yet?
Not quite yet. I need another gallon or two.
Andrew, I think you're on the least amount of sleep. You went and raced in Egypt, was it?
It felt like it, that drive home last night. I kept telling myself, I got to be up at 7:30. Come on, get home faster. I couldn't get any faster.
How'd you guys race last night?
Well, I had problems all night long, I think is what it seemed like. Finally got a heat race under our belt that we ran good, and then the first lap of the feature, I had a fuel pump go out. I've just been struggling all season.
We, last night out at Eagle, we were running third in the heat race, and the 13th of Anthony Kobus actually had a scary situation. I don't know if you've seen this, Andrew. His air cleaner had shifted on the carburetor, caught the fuel lever, and when he caught the lever, or the fuel linkage, the throttle stuck wide open. He tagged me in the left rear, spun me out, so I had to go to the C feature, started third row outside in the C feature, won the C, went to the B feature, and I was pretty upset, so I started 22nd, got up to 6th, and got involved in another wreck, and I could finish, but I think we only ended up finishing like 7th or 8th, and we finished 2 or 3 outside the top 5 to make it to the A. So, but I'm like Andrew, that drive home from the racetrack when you know you got to be here to see somebody like Dan Taylor at 7:30 in the morning, that is the world's longest drive. That's like walking to death row.
Well, it sounds like both of you guys had a little bit of issue with your cars last night. Got some work to do this week to get them back into tip-top shape and get to racing again. Where are you racing at this coming week?
Saturday night, actually today, we're going to be going over to Denison, Iowa for the practice. If we can get it in, outside looks like it's real foggy. Rain's trying to come down. And then next Saturday will be the second weekly show at Eagle. Sunday we'll be off, and then the following week we'll start our Friday, Saturday routine for the season.
Andrew, where are you at?
And next week starts my Friday, Saturday routine. I-80 kicks off this week for their first points night. I'll go there Friday night and then back to McCool Junction on Saturday.
Gosh, you sound horrible.
Oh, thanks.
I can hear that stuffed up.
Well, no, we were talking before we went on air. What was the car count and the crowd count like at McCool last night?
You know what? It was really down because probably the weather. It was so cold. And they even talked about it at intermission. They go, we really didn't want to do this, but we had about 50 drivers call and said they wanted to race. Then they had 50 more that said they didn't want to race. I was one of those 50s just going, man, if they rain out, I'm not going to be too upset this week, which I wish it would have now that everything that happened, I had to be up and sit next to you, Bud.
Well, what a way to start the day.
Well, I think we're going to start a rule here on the front stretch that you make sure to shower before you come to the show.
I still got last night's jeans on.
Let's get into covering a little bit about Richmond. The race last night, it was a pretty calm race for the most part. A lot of your short track stuff, we didn't really see the tempers that we're used to seeing. The old man himself, Mark Martin, leads on the pole, and I believe he led the first 23 laps. How about that? 53 years old, gets his 54th pole, and he brings it down from Uncle Waltrip Racing. He came out. I was watching qualifying that night, the day before, and how he managed to get that qualifying, I have no idea, because there was about 15 cars that went before him. The track had completely loosened up, times had completely fallen off, but he goes out there and just shows everybody how to do it. That guy he's not 53 years at all.
Well, I don't think it's got anything to do with the age. Mark Martin is an institution in NASCAR, and after all these years of driving, he has seen every possible scenario from the track changing to whatever, and he knows he's got enough experience underneath of his seat there to really make up for it. So, that's not surprising at all. I mean, yeah, it is kind of nice to see him here at 52, 53, 54 years old, get a pole, but it's not surprising at the same time either. I mean, he's still capable of winning races on any given day.
He's bad fast a lot of the days. I mean, he's completely defying logic that when you're in a sport, you're done by 35, 40 years old. The man is 10 times more fit than all three of us combined, easily.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Okay.
But Carl,
he's more fit than that.
Carl Edwards rears his head and had an absolutely dominant car all night long. Frankly, one of the cars that should have won the race. The race kind of settles in from there, but the drama actually began to unfold at lap 100. And one of our good fans was texting with me the whole night, and I have never heard him so mad as when this whole series of events unfolds. And we've watched the YouTube replays. Bud and I are almost fist-throwing, disagreeing as far as how this unfolded.
Yep.
But Jimmy Johnson and Carl Edwards were both victims of apparently NASCAR was a little cranky last night and decided to throw penalties out at the smallest of things. The easiest way to do it, go back and watch the replay of the race, but the 48 came in during a green flag stop, but as they hit their pit stall, the yellow comes out. They decide to go ahead and change the four tires, do a pit stop, because they were going to be safe of not going a lap down. During the confusion, the tire carrier, the one that takes the old tire off the car and then takes it around to the other side of the wall and gives it to the guy behind the wall, forgot the tire. He just completely forgot one of his jobs, and so the jackman had to grab it and roll it around. Well, according to the rule books, you're not allowed to roll the tire from the back of the car. You have to carry it to the wall or roll it to the wall, but it has to be under your control. And the Paul Menard team pointed this out, that the jackman who rolled the tire had rolled it and not carried it or taken it over under his power, and so the 48 team was eventually penalized, and they had to serve a pass-through penalty. They didn't go through a pass-through penalty. They had to go to the end of the longest line. So during the restart, they restarted, I believe, 11th, but they had to go to the end of the longest line, so there was 36 cars in front of them. A bit of a long jaunt to go to if you're at Richmond. So I believe it was 86 laps to go when the green was eventually thrown, and he had a lot of cars to get around. Then the restart happens, and this is where the whole controversy started, and NASCAR has not helped the controversy at all with the fact that it seems they told the 14 and the 99, you are the leader. They seem to have told both cars they're the leader. When the green flag is thrown, Carl Edwards takes off, and he's shot out of a cannon. And you can totally see it. The outside row just goes. Tony Stewart, as he did all night long, spun the tires. Now, here's where you begin to get into the opinions. According to NASCAR, Carl Edwards started too soon. That's what he is eventually black flagged for, and has to come into a pass-through penalty during the green flag. So his day is pretty much done. The question, as far as we're concerned, Bud, you and I were arguing about this before.
And we're going to argue some more.
If you watch the YouTube video, it's plain and simple to see that Carl Edwards started too soon, outside of the restart window. And it looks like he started substantially early when you're talking about NASCAR terms. These guys deal in fractions of a second and mere feet. They can tell when they've beat another guy by feet, but they can't tell where a restart zone is that they've been using all night long, when he was easily 5 or 6 car lengths before the restart zone.
NASCAR might have told Stewart and Edwards that they were the leaders, but if you look at the replays on YouTube, it clearly shows Stewart's on the inside. He's on the pole. He's first place. What I seen was Carl take off, like a rocket sled on wheels, but what I also see is Stewart getting loose and spinning the tires. Now, I understand NASCAR saying, will you jump the start? I don't think he jumped the start, and I understand your point. Well, he's got those boxes. He's got that restart box. I'm sorry, at 140 mile an hour, you're not looking out at the side window to make sure your car's perfectly lined up with that restart box.
During a restart, you're not going 140. You're going pit speeds. So let's figure that out. Pit speeds at Richmond is 55 miles an hour.
I don't think you're going 55 mile an hour on the restart. You come around that corner, you're not sitting there holding steady at 55 and then gunning the throttle. I bet you're doing all of 80
restarts.
I think you're doing all of 80 to 100 mile an hour, and then because you're speeding up as you're going into turn 3. But I think what would have happened is, let's say Stewart never spun the tires and he took off just as fast as Edwards. I sincerely don't think NASCAR would have made that call.
I don't think so either. I think, well, okay, and according to the rules, if Carl Edwards, even though Carl Edwards was told he is the leader, if Carl Edwards was actually in second place and him and Tony would have taken off at the same pace, they would have came on the radio and told Carl, you need to give up your position. You need to give up the position to Stewart. If they'd have been even, you need to be second place. Because we've done that before to where there's been an uneven restart and NASCAR's just let them start it out. But there was no way for that to happen at that point in time. And by the time NASCAR ruled it, I believe they were down into turn 4, finishing that lap, and Tony was back into 6th place because he didn't go. I think that Tony spun his tires, and then he saw Carl take off, and he went, well, wait a minute, I'm going to make this look even worse, and he didn't even go. Eventually, he took off, but he pointed it out by not going that Carl Edwards went too soon. And the thing that NASCAR is ruling is, doesn't matter who was first or second, Carl started too soon, and according to the restart lines, Carl did start too soon. Andrew, anything you want to add to this? Do you want to try to?
I don't want to get in the middle of it at all. It doesn't seem like right now because it looks like both of you are about nose to nose right now, ready to kill each other here. But again, Tony Stewart definitely spun his tires. And in the dirt world, and then just like everything else, Carl Edwards did right. You got to be about a nose length ahead to be on the outside. It's just like a track meet. They stagger it out because he's got a little bit wider turn around the corner. Well, he was where he was supposed to be, thinking Tony was going to get the run. Tony usually gets. Tony didn't get the run at all. Carl gets the run. He gets screwed for it. That's just what happened.
And he did say in the post-race interview that as they were coming out of turn 4, his radio was cued by his spotter and said, NASCAR says you're the leader. So he had fractions of a second, essentially, from when they were coming out of turn 4 and the green flag throwing to do something about it. And he said in the post-race interview, okay, NASCAR's lined us up wrong. Doesn't really matter right now because we're going green. So I'm going to have to get the best restart I can possibly get. And this is kind of funny. We talked about how Carl Edwards is such a sponsor-friendly person. He was so mad during the post-race interview with Fox that he forgot to thank any of his sponsors. And you could tell as soon as they cued when they went away and they kept the camera on him, he kind of threw his hands up and he went, oh, man, I forgot. So he starts pointing on his fire suit all of his different sponsors and thanking them.
I want to be out at Eagle next week going, look, I'm sponsored by Joe's Karting.
So eventually, Tony Stewart has the great car on the green flag runs. He takes the lead away, and it shows that he has a dominant car. But caution comes out with 14 to go, debris in the backstretch. This, as always, upsets Tony. He hates these mysterious cautions that come out. And frankly, as a Tony Stewart fan, I didn't like seeing it because I knew his pit crew was off that night. He was having bad pit stops, and he could not get going for anything. He had horrible restarts all night long. I knew as soon as that caution came out, he's not winning that race. But caution, again, debris comes out, which it made things a little bit more interesting, and this is where we can get to talking about it maybe in turn 2 a little bit or later in the show, there's been so few cautions lately. And I think NASCAR was just kind of itching for anything to be on the track.
Was this the water bottle issue?
Well, I don't know what it was, but he had a water bottle in the post-race interview and said it's kind of BS when NASCAR throws a caution for debris and it's a water bottle. I think he was just using that as an example, but there was something on the track. And NASCAR can always, that's kind of their little gray area, maybe their canals area as we've dubbed it lately.
Yes.
That, oh, look, there's something on the track. We need to call a caution. And this is a great time for us to be able to call a caution. So Kyle Busch wins the race off pit road. Tony has another bad stop, and then again he has a bad restart, and Kyle Busch just shoots out of it like a rocket. Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets around him, and the race settles in. The last 10 or 15 laps or so. Dale loses his brakes, but he's able to hold the car into second place. Comes around with a great finish. Kyle Busch wins the race. Yeah, I know I'm a little tongue tied this morning.
Busch.
Yeah. Kyle Busch wins. He has an absolutely awesome weekend. He wins Friday night in the Nationwide Series as the owner. His brother takes that 54 car across the line. Dale Earnhardt comes in second, Tony third. Denny Hamlin has another great weekend, finishes fourth, and Casey Kane with another great weekend finishes fifth. a lot of different things happened that night. Unfortunately, we've kind of ran out of time, but we'll talk more about it later in the show. For now, let's get to the trivia question. Head over to the Facebook page, The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting, and answer this question. What car number is the winningest number in NASCAR history? Through all the numbers that have won races, what is the winningest car number in NASCAR history? Head over to the Facebook page. Answer that question. You're going to win yourself a 3-pack to Joe's Karting.
It's not 2X.
It is not 2X, and it sure as heck ain't 25 either. Make sure to head over to our Facebook page and get yourself that answer. You can win a 3-pack to Joe's Karting. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting. Turn 2's just around the corner. We'll be back. It's AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.